In a crowded airport, an 8-year-old girl in a wheelchair sat motionless and alone, forgotten like luggage. No one cared, until a struggling single dad stopped and asked, "Why is she all alone?" That one question unraveled a secret the world wasn't ready for, and shattered a billionaire father's polished image. Jake Harper wasn't rich, but he had something far more valuable: empathy. As a single father raising his son Lucas, he knew what it felt like to be ignored, to feel invisible. So when he saw the little girl alone in a wheelchair at gate 36, something in him couldn't just walk away. The moment he knelt beside her, he noticed everything others had missed: the dried tear stains on her cheeks, the nervous way she clutched the fabric of her coat, the trembling of her lower lip. She couldn't have been older than 8, and she looked terrified. "My name's Jake," he said softly. "This is my son Lucas. What's your name?" "Emma," she murmured, voice shaking. "Emma, are you flying somewhere today? Is someone with you?" She blinked hard and looked away. "My daddy said someone from the airport would come help me, but they didn't." Jake glanced at the tag pinned to her sweater: Emma Caldwell, unaccompanied minor, wheelchair assistance. He felt a cold wave wash over him. He asked the gate attendant about her. She shrugged it off. Said maybe the airport staff were running behind. Another airline worker told him it wasn't his problem. People passed by without a second glance. Lucas tugged his sleeve again. "She looks really sad, Dad." Jake took a deep breath and made a decision. He canceled their connecting flight. He wasn't going to leave this girl alone, not for a second. He called the airline helpline again, asking for the family contact on record. After a long wait and multiple holds, someone gave him a name: Richard Caldwell. Jake raised his eyebrows. The name rang a bell. A quick search on his phone confirmed it. Richard Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Technologies, one of the richest men in the country. Known for his cold demeanor and sharp business acumen, worth billions. And he had left his paralyzed daughter alone at the airport. He couldn't understand it. How could a man so powerful abandon his child in this chaos? Emma deserved so much better. While Jake tried to figure out what to do next, Emma's small voice cut through the noise. "Am I in trouble?" He looked at her. "Of course not, sweetheart. Why would you think that?" "Because Daddy said if I messed up again, he'd be really mad." Jake clenched his fists. His son looked up at him, confused. Emma continued, almost whispering, "He didn't want to come to the hospital anymore after the accident. He said I was too much work." Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. He bought them snacks and sat with her while calling social services. Hours passed. Still, no one from the Caldwell family showed up. Eventually, a sharp-looking man in a black suit arrived, claiming to be from the company, and tried to take Emma without even speaking to her. Jake blocked him. "Unless her father comes himself, she's not going anywhere." He glared. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Jake didn't flinch. Neither do you. He took Emma and Lucas to the family restroom, helped her freshen up, got her some warm food, and found a quiet corner to wait. But his mind was racing. Something wasn't right. Why leave your daughter like this? Why send a stranger to pick her up? Later that night, Jake received a call from an unknown number. "This is Richard Caldwell. Step away from my daughter before you make a mistake you'll regret." But Jake had already made his decision. He wasn't letting go. Jake hadn't expected the phone to ring again, but when it did, the voice on the other end was cold enough to freeze him in place. "This is Richard Caldwell. You have my daughter." Jake tightened his grip on the phone. "Your daughter has been sitting alone in a wheelchair for 5 hours in one of the busiest airports in America. Not a nanny, not an escort, no assistance, just silence. You left her, Mr. Caldwell." There was a pause. Then the CEO's voice grew sharper. "You have no idea what's going on. You don't know who I am." Jake's tone didn't change. "You're right, I don't. But I know she's terrified, and I know she asked me if she was in trouble for needing help." Silence. "I'm coming to get her," Caldwell said. Jake replied without hesitation. "You'd better come in person. Don't send a driver, don't send staff. You want her back? Come look her in the eye." Then he hung up. Emma sat nearby, resting her head on Lucas's shoulder. Jake watched her, heart heavy. It wasn't just about being left behind. This child carried something deeper, something unspoken. He could see it in the way she flinched every time a man in a suit walked by, in the way her eyes scanned the floor instead of meeting his. Later that evening, as they waited in a quiet corner of the airport, Jake pulled up an article about Richard Caldwell. There it was, a smiling photo of a man standing at a tech conference stage, flanked by innovation awards, a polished company logo, and headlines that read, "Silicon Valley's most ruthless visionary." But what caught Jake's eye was a buried link to an old news story. Tragic accident claims life of Caldwell CEO's wife. Daughter survives, but left paralyzed. Jake's heart sank. Emma's voice broke the silence. "Do you know what he said to me the night after Mom died?" "What?" She stared ahead, unmoving. "He said, 'Don't cry. That's weakness.'" Jake swallowed hard. Emma's eyes brimmed. "He used to call me my little rocket. Now he barely looks at me." Jake reached out and gently touched her hand. "You don't have to earn love, Emma. You just deserve it." For the first time all day, she looked directly at him. Later that night, Richard Caldwell arrived not through the main terminal, but escorted by private security to a side entrance. He came in wearing a crisp navy suit, shoes that cost more than Jake's rent, and the look of a man more used to boardrooms than parenting. Jake met him in the waiting lounge, standing in front of Emma, like a barrier. "She's safe," Jake said before the CEO could open his mouth. "But she's not going anywhere until you talk to her." Caldwell stepped forward. "Emma, sweetheart, I'm here now." The girl didn't respond. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap. "I sent my assistant to get you," he added awkwardly. "There was a situation with the board, time sensitive." "You sent a stranger," Jake said, "to collect your daughter like a package." Richard's expression tightened. "I have no idea the pressure I'm under." Jake didn't flinch. "And you have no idea how much pressure she's under just to feel wanted." The words struck something. Richard knelt by Emma, but she turned away. He stood slowly. "Fine. What do you want from me? Money?" Jake laughed, but it wasn't bitter. It was sad. "I want you to see her." For the first time, Caldwell's facade cracked. Jake gathered his son and Emma. "We'll be at the hotel across the street. You want her back? Come alone. As a father." He started to walk away, but Emma tugged his sleeve. Her voice was barely audible. "Can I stay with you and Lucas tonight?" Jake glanced back at Caldwell. The billionaire looked stunned, powerless. Jake nodded to Emma gently. "Of course you can." And just like that, a secret began to reveal itself. Not just about Richard's absence, but about a man so consumed with status that he forgot the only thing that couldn't be bought: trust. Emma lay curled under the crisp white sheets of Jake's modest hotel room. Lucas had fallen asleep first, clutching a stuffed dinosaur and facing her wheelchair as if guarding her through the night. Emma watched the dim lamp above the bed and whispered, "I haven't slept this well in a long time." Jake, sitting in the armchair near the door, smiled softly. "Safe places help us sleep." Emma hesitated. "This feels like home, more than home ever did." That sentence hit Jake harder than he expected. He had been a stranger just yesterday, yet somehow this girl, forgotten by the world, now trusted him more than her own father. It was heartbreaking and humbling. In the morning, a knock rattled the hotel door. Jake opened it slowly. There stood Richard Caldwell. Alone. No security, no car keys in hand, just a man in a gray hoodie and jeans, looking more human than ever. His hair was unkempt, his eyes bloodshot. There was no arrogance now, only uncertainty. I left my company in the hands of the COO. I told them it was time I took care of something more important. Jake didn't move. I need to talk to her, Richard added quietly. She'll decide if she wants to. But first, tell me something. Richard nodded. Why'd you leave her like that? The billionaire looked down at his shoes. When her mother died, it wasn't just the accident. I died with her. The version of me that laughed, that played piano on Sundays, that read bedtime stories, that man disappeared. Jake folded his arms. And Emma? I didn't know how to handle her pain, Richard admitted. I thought if I provided enough, therapy, nurses, tutors, that would be enough. I forgot that presence is provision. He paused. You reminded me. Jake finally opened the door wider. You can speak to her. Inside, Emma's eyes locked on her father. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply waited. Richard knelt by her wheelchair, the same way Jake had knelt when they first met. I was wrong, Emma. I thought I was keeping you safe by staying away from the mess. But the truth is, I abandoned you. She said nothing. I don't want to be the kind of father who sends assistants to do his job. I want to be the one who sits beside you in the waiting room, who pushes your chair down the sidewalk, who learns how to braid your hair, even if I do it badly. Emma's lip trembled. I can't fix what I did, but I want to start over, if you'll let me. Tears finally rolled down her cheeks. She turned her head slowly, looked at Jake, then at Lucas, still snoozing under the covers. Then Emma whispered, Can Mr. Jake help teach you? Jake looked stunned. Richard smiled, humbled. I'd be lucky if he would. In the weeks that followed, a quiet miracle unfolded. Richard took time off. The media calmed, but the public didn't forget. Photos surfaced, not of red carpets, but of a billionaire pushing his daughter's wheelchair at the park, eating ice cream with Jake and Lucas, laughing awkwardly at playground jokes. But the real turning point came on a stormy Tuesday afternoon when Emma asked her father, Can we visit Mommy's grave together? Richard nodded. That day he didn't bring flowers. He brought something else. A promise. I lost your mom. I almost lost you. I'm done running from the wreckage. And in that cemetery, soaked in rain, Emma leaned into her father's chest, and for the first time since the accident, they both allowed themselves to cry. Not of grief, but healing. 3 months had passed since that rainy day at the cemetery. The world moved on, airports bustled, companies traded, news cycles churned. But for one little girl, her world had finally begun to heal. Emma no longer looked like the ghost of herself. Her cheeks were fuller now, often flushed from laughter. Her wheelchair still rolled quietly through sidewalks and hallways, but her voice no longer trembled. Her eyes met people's. She smiled more. Jake Harper's life had changed too. What started as a missed flight and a simple question opened doors he never imagined. He was offered interviews, praised as America's dad, and even invited to speak on national TV. But Jake declined most of them. I didn't save Emma. I just saw her. That's all most people need. Richard Caldwell, he transformed in the quietest, most remarkable way. His empire ran without him for weeks. Shareholders panicked until Richard returned not to issue orders, but to listen. He cut back his schedule, started investing in assistive technology, launched a foundation in his late wife's name for children with mobility challenges. But the biggest shift happened behind closed doors. It was in the way Richard showed up to Emma's physical therapy, not with a checkbook, but with a juice box and a smile. It was how he learned to attach her wheelchair straps in the car, how he awkwardly helped with homework, how he'd call Jake late at night asking, "Is it normal she's having nightmares again? What do I say to help her sleep?" He stopped pretending to be a perfect man and started trying to be a real father. One Saturday, while the four of them were walking, well, Jake and Richard walking, Emma rolling and Lucas skipping, Emma pointed to a tree-lined park and said, "This was Mommy's favorite place." Richard paused, then asked, "Would it be okay if we planted a new tree here, in her memory?" Emma nodded. It became a small annual tradition, planting a tree each year. One for grief, one for hope, one for forgiveness, and one, eventually, for new beginnings. Because Emma had chosen to forgive. She once told Jake quietly, "I don't think Daddy ever hated me. I think he hated the version of life he didn't expect. He just didn't know how to love what changed." Jake had squeezed her hand gently. "The best people aren't the ones who never break, Emma. They're the ones who learn how to bend and still grow." In time, Richard and Jake grew close, not because of fame, wealth, or obligation, but because they both loved the same little girl in different ways. One gave her life. The other gave her safety. And together, they helped her believe in people again. In a world moving too fast to notice the lonely or the broken, kindness remains the most radical act. Jake didn't change Emma's world with money or power. He changed it with a question. Why is she all alone? It was enough to shake a billionaire and heal a child.